All right, welcome to Health and Wellness with Coach A.T. Moore. Today we have Kamilah, the homeschool mama. Basically, this is going to be a masterclass on all things homeschooling, or as much homeschooling stuff I can get from her within an hour, because I only have an hour because homeschool moms are busy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Coach Moore. I'm really excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you. I want to make sure that I say this right. Now, on TikTok, it is Kamilah Homeschooling Mama, but on Instagram, it's LMU Motherhood. Did I say that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What is the meaning behind that name?
So LMU is actually Swahili for wisdom or to learn. And so basically fit together learning motherhood, because that's what I want to create for my community. I like the community I'm creating around my TikTok, around my Instagram, and eventually wherever else I kind of, fall into. I want moms to understand that we're all learning. We're at different points in our motherhood journey. And I don't want to feel like just because you don't know this doesn't make you a bad mom. It's just about gaining knowledge. For me, I really don't like the feeling that when I was a new mom, I got from a lot of spaces where it was like, you don't know that? You don't know that? Of course I don't know that. I'm a first-time mom. It's about me coming and being willing to learn. And that's what I want to do for the moms that I have around me and that are following me. So LMU Motherhood, that's where that came from.
Y'all can see how you can find it. There we go. So find her on Instagram. And this is your TikTok handle too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Now her TikTok, oh my God, there's so much. And let me tell y'all this. I stole a lot of these questions from her TikTok because there's so much I wanted to know. And I was like, I'm just going to ask these questions because obviously if they're pinned to the top, everyone wants to know them as well. So let's get into the business of where are you from? How many kids do you have? And then we'll go off to some other questions.
Okay.
Homeschooling.
So I was born in Trinidad, but I reside in Atlanta.
Okay.
I've had my stops. So I lived in New York. I went to school in Tennessee and in Atlanta area, Metro Atlanta. I have 2 kids. I have a boy and he is 4, and I have a daughter and she's 1. And then what was the other question?
The other question is, did you always, before you had kids, did you just know I'm going to be a homeschool mom, or was it something that happened that make you say, you know what, I'm gonna school my own kids at home?
So I always knew I wanted to homeschool my kids. Before I had kids, before I was married, before I was even thinking about it, because I enjoyed my school experience. I went to public school in New York City. I enjoyed it. But I always felt that there were aspects missing from my learning experience. And so being of Caribbean descent, I felt like I wasn't learning about my Caribbean heritage. I wasn't learning about Black heritage. I wasn't learning enough for me. And I got it at home, right? But I was like, well, if that's where I'm getting it, I might as well homeschool my kids. So that's always has always been in the back of my head.
Right.
And so I went to school, I did math and I did education, and then I taught for a little bit, and I was like, yeah, no, definitely going to be homeschooling. And then once I had my son, I was like, yep, that's it. That's all. We're in it. And so I've always I think a lot of people are like, you have so much knowledge. It's because I've always been reading and dabbling, gleaning my information, as I've gotten along the years. So that's why I have so much of oh, you can look at this or look at this.
Well, you kind of cheated, and I'm gonna tell you why in a minute, but it sounds like you kind of wanted to curate your kids' education, making sure they had the fundamentals of knowledge, but also a little bit of history and understanding of where they come from, their culture. And that's not intentionally taught in school. We get the other history. We don't get our history.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the reason why I say you cheated is because you have a background in education. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, I could be like Kamilah. Well, I have a background in education too, but I'm thinking, oh, this is for everyone. You don't need no background in education.
But you know what though? I think that I think it's actually sometimes a disservice if you have a background in education, if you're trained, because I think that you have this ideal of what a classroom should look and feel like.
Yeah.
And then you bring it into your homeschool experience, and it makes it a lot more stressful, right? You're like trying to like to twist your children, twist your house, twist everything into this ideal of what a classroom should look like. And then you lose all the beauty of what homeschooling it actually is, right? Like the ability to like see your children for who they are, and for like the people that they're becoming, and be able to teach them through that, right? Through the experiences, through the interests that they have, instead of trying to be like, no, you have to do it like this, like this, like this, like this, like this, right? I will say that obviously, you know, some people are like, well, I don't know how to teach my kid to read. I'm like, listen, there are like 50 different programs that you can go and get. But being able to observe your child unadulteratedly for who they are is the gift that homeschool gives you, and being able to see them and be able to teach that way. I think sometimes I have to explain to people all the time, I'm like, it's okay, you don't have to be a teacher. Like you your kids.
You know, I like that you said that, because I never really thought about it that way. So if anyone's watching and you are like on the fence, just trying to decide whether or not you should homeschool or put your kids in a private or public school, whatever one you are considering, and you were thinking, I need to be an educator, I think Kamilah just kind of gave us a good reason why you shouldn't be. Because if you're an educator, you have to unlearn some things, you know? But if you're not an educator, you can really go in with the lens of solely what's best for my kids. Because as an educator, former educator, you're thinking, okay, we got to get up at this time. But if you know my kid's brain doesn't function before 9:00, then that's when we do our learning. We start at 9. You know, we take longer breaks. I think that's really important. So I'm glad that you gave us a different way to look at, you know, who is and who is not qualified to be a homeschool mom. So that or parent, because there are some homeschool dads. So let me make sure I make the spectrum. So what is the biggest misconception about homeschooling? We talked about having like a background of education, but what else comes up?
That you can't have well-prepared children. I think that's a huge misconception. And obviously the big question that everyone always has is socialization.
Oh, I got that question down. We're going to talk about socialization, because, you know, homeschool kids are weird. They don't know how to socialize. Yes, we're going to talk about that. I definitely want to get your insight on that. Yes.
So those two tend to be the biggest, like, you know, like misconceptions around homeschooling. I think that, and also I think that I think a lot of people have to, I try to front load this and tell people when they are choosing to homeschool, just remember that you are going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, because they're going to have to rethink the choice that they made for their children, right? Like when you come into a space and you say, I'm homeschooling my kid, you're not trying to say it in any way other than this is what I'm doing, but people and start to think about, well, maybe I should be homeschooling my kid, and so they start to compare, and then a lot of times it's not they don't ask curious questions to find out, but they start to attack homeschooling in a certain light, and so they feel challenged. And I think that's with anything that's not the mainstream. People are always like
That's interesting. So can you give me like an example of someone that would be offended? So if I'm like, oh, what do you do? Or if you ask me, if I'm asking you, or maybe you're asking me, or give me an example of someone that would be offended, like you just said, because it would make them question their.
I work with a lot of different moms and stuff, and I have a mom who, she took her kid out because they were not getting the services that they needed. They had a few IEPs or special need things, and so she took her kids out, and she took the time to be able to teach them exactly how they needed to be taught, right? And so now they're super kind of advanced in certain area in their specialty, the thing that they love, right? And when they went, he really enjoys like art and like doing like these amazing paintings and stuff, and they went to like, they had a whole little art exhibit. And they were talking about like, oh my goodness, how long has he been painting? And like they're talking to someone, and she's like, oh, he's homeschooled, so he could paint pretty much whenever, every subject he paint something or whatever. And the person was like, homeschooling, why would you homeschool your kid? Like, my kids are in school, that they don't have time to paint, but they do like painting. And now it's like this like wheels of questions. And so then they were like, but they're not going to be able to like do all the things that people in school do in terms of having an art teacher and stuff like that. And so the mom, she turns to them, she's like, you can hire an art teacher, you can go to art classes, you can have all those things. But I think it's I think sometimes a lot of people forget that you can have both, right? Like you can have people who are thriving in school, and that is the choice that they make, and it's the best one for their kid. I think for me, it's very much about, I want people to be able to, I think I'll probably say this a lot, is be able to see their kid. Yeah. See what's going to be the best for them. Because some kids, they're like, I need to be in school because I like all the things. And some kids cannot be, because they have such a specialized like interest that they to learn through that interest, right? And so it just depends. And so I think as a parent, it's about being able to take a step back and like, let me observe my child, right? And in addition to, I think that when we have the broader conversation, especially here in America, especially when we're talking about public school, I think a lot of people they try to have two separate conversations, even though it's one. They know that the public school system is broken. It doesn't service our children, especially our Black kids. Like it doesn't service our kids the way it's supposed to. Right. And they know that's true over here, but then they tell you not. They were like, but why would you take it into your own hands? Still send them into the system, and you're like, I'm not saying I don't want this to be fixed. I am an advocate for fixing this, but I don't want my kids to be the martyrs for that fixing. The collateral damage, right? And so I think those are always the things that get pushed back a lot. And it's like, no, I can still advocate. I still go to school board meetings. I'm still a part of my greater community, right? But that my child has to be in that school system. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. I like that example that you gave, because as you were sharing that example, I was like, I felt a spirit of defensiveness, and that wasn't even part of the conversation. It's like, what do you mean? Why am I homeschooling? Like, what do you mean? But yeah, I can definitely see how those type of conversations could make someone have to defend their decision or feel like they have maybe made the wrong decision. So give us some insight about the homeschooling culture. Now, from watching your TikTok, I know that there's two different cultures. So break that down. So like, I think with homeschooling, just like anything else, there are subsets of like the culture. There is, I'll start it off in basics. There is white homeschooling and how that, and I will say that the brand of homeschooling that most people probably know in their mind is white evangelical Christian homeschooling, right?
Really religious, yes.
Really religious homeschooling. They're homeschooling their kids because they need to shield them from the world. They don't want anybody to taint their children, so they take them and isolate them, right? Yes. And you have like secular homeschoolers who are white, but they also are, they are more involved, but they definitely don't think about, oh, maybe I should make sure that my children see other people that don't look like them. Yeah. And then for a lot of Black homeschoolers, like obviously there are those subsets of, different layers, but for a vast majority of us, the underlying current is that we want literally the best education for our kids. And we see it, we know that, the schools are not set up to teach our children to their best potential, to give them a sense of self, a sense of a sense of understanding who they are. It's not baked in there.
Right.
So we take into our hands and we're like, okay, I'm gonna have to homeschool you so that you can have that and you have a strong foundation, able to have that and not, not be questioning, because stuff about where you come from, who you are, all these different aspects of people that look like you that have done amazing things. So
so you shouldn't have to watch a movie to find out that Black women were responsible for putting a spaceship on the moon. Because I want to go back to my teachers and say, is there something you forgot to tell me? Because maybe I would have loved math if I would have saw other Black women that were really good at math. Because I had a teacher tell me that, only boys are good at math. I was like, okay, well then I'm not gonna focus on that. And to this day, I hate math. I like money, but I don't like math. So, but yeah, it's like as we evolve and as Black history gets outside of Martin Luther King and Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, which are all great, amazing people that made contributions to our culture, there is Black history being made every day. And we need a system and a place to celebrate all of this history that has been made, that made its way out of the books that are taught, and that's being made. And if we're not intentional about that, we forget that there's a lot that we bring to the table. We didn't come over here as slaves. We came over here as kings and queens. And that seems to be left out of a lot of the books that are being taught right now. There's also, I think, another avenue of homeschool parents. These are parents that have really gifted athletes and their schedules don't allow them to go the traditional school route, or their parents have a profession that prevents them from going the school route, so they go that route.
And what's interesting to me, like no one even bats an eye when like really gymnasts and stuff like that, because those are like more notable people that people really know. All homeschooled pretty much. Like a lot of them are
swimmers.
They can't be in a school system setting because one, you spend way too many hours in a day at school, but we're not gonna go there. But they have a passion and they are being able to focus on their passion and then do school on the other side. And no one, it's not a big deal. But then like when it comes to, no, my kid's not an athlete, but I have other passions that I want them to focus on and I'm going to homeschool them, they're always very much like, oh, no. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, it's like the parents that have these elite actors or athletes are looked at, oh my God, you're this amazing parent. You're making sure your kid gets educated and you're pouring in and supporting their interests. But on the flip side, if your student is not gifted and talented in the athletic or art world as far as acting, then you're looked at someone that's doing your kid a disservice from ripping them out of public education. How dare you think it's not good for you? Good enough for your kids. It's good enough for my kids. But yeah, there is a discrepancy in how that is viewed. That's a valid point. So for those watching who do not know, what is a co-op?
So some layman's terms, or the easiest way to explain it, a co-op really is a group of homeschool families that come together, and the level or what the co-op does really depends on the families, because some co-ops are pretty much micro schools, right? They have classes, they have labs, they have field trips, they have events. Some co-ops are literally straight, like we're going on field trips every week and we meet up and have play dates. Other co-ops are like, okay, we're here to support in the sense of helping you get through it.
Gotcha.
And so it really depends on the level of what you've agreed to as a community, right? Like we're like, okay, like for me, I'm like, we have here in Atlanta, I've gotten together with ladies here. We go weekly, either once a week or twice a week. We usually do a field trip of some sort with the kids, whatever place it is. Because for us, it's a lot easier to say, okay, field trips will go together.
Right.
As we want to hang out with each other. We want the kids to be together.
Yeah.
But we don't necessarily want to do classes together.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
really depends, but it's pretty much your community that you're building. That's just the word. That's the word that is used. So and it does not have a co-op does not necessarily look the same in every sense.
Okay. Yeah, I keep hearing, that's a buzzword in the homeschool community. So I gotta ask, because I know a lot of people are watching, where and how do homeschool students get their socialization? Because there's a lot of labeling of homeschool kids don't know how to interact because all they do is they are isolated at home and they do their work and they just have their parents. So when they get around kids, they're weird. Well, I hope you've enjoyed part 1 of our conversation with Kamilah, the homeschool mama. We will pick up with part 2 tomorrow, where she is going to go into more detail about how to socialize your homeschool child. This is Health and Wellness with Coach A.T. Moore on Roku TV. Thanks for watching.